Welcome to Books Are Good Medicine, a podcast sponsored by the Shakopee, Mdewakanton, and Sioux community, featuring books and other Native American-focused teaching resources. I'm your host today, Allison Waka. In this special episode, we're delighted to welcome Minnesota State Senator Mary Kunesh, a descendant of the Standing Rock Sioux Tribe. She shares what Native books are on her to-be-read pile and what books she recommends for school-aged children. She has some great recommendations. Hope you enjoy.
Hamatakiape and Pektukinle Shante Washte. I am State Senator Mary Kunesh from Minnesota, and I'm a descendant of the Standing Rock Nation. But as this podcast pertains, I was also a library media specialist for 20 years in the public school system here in Minnesota. And so literacy, literature, understanding the value of books and reading and how it expands our world is really one of the most paramount things in my life. I also serve as the chair of education finance in Minnesota, and just really excited to have been able over the past 2 years to invest in our libraries in a way that Minnesota hasn't for a very, very long time. And not just our school libraries and our school library media specialists, but the county libraries, the specialty libraries, all of those public libraries that do so much for our communities. And I am a ferocious reader. I always have stacks of books near my bed, all over the house, and generally are reading, like most avid readers, numerous books at any one time. I'm currently reading Where They Saw Her Last, Marcy Rendon's newest book, and she has the series also that of mysteries that is also such a good series and really addresses so many of the issues at hand for our American Indians. But this book, Where They Saw Her Last, is about, it takes place in Minnesota, so you recognize a lot of the places, a lot of the names, about 3 young women, and the one woman, Quill, hears a scream in the woods when she's out running. And they start to investigate it on their own. And we know with the missing and murdered Indigenous relatives issue that oftentimes those claims or those issues are not investigated very well, and that our community has to kind of take charge. So Where They Last Saw Her by Marcy Rendon is my current book. Another book that I really want to encourage you all to read is called A Council of Dolls by Mona Susan Power. She is Standing Rock, Dakota, grew up in Chicago in the Indian community there, now lives here in St. Paul. And this book is kind of through the lives of 3 different dolls, 3 different generations of American Indian families and communities. And just as a disclosure, she is my cousin. So there's a lot of my family history in that book, which is so fascinating to read and helps me connect to the characters and the situation, because those are stories and individuals that, while they're not named in the book, the characters that they represent, I have heard and known some of those folks. So that's really an important part of understanding our culture, is seeing ourselves and seeing our ancestors in the literature that we read. I want to make sure that everybody is reading Braiding Sweetgrass. And what I really loved about this is that it came out as an adult book, and then they simplified it into a book for young adults. And I was, the last 5 years of my teaching experience, I taught in a middle school. And I remember buying this book for my school, and it really got a lot of acclaim. It talks about Indigenous wisdom, scientific knowledge, and the teaching of plants. And I think that's so important in this day and age when we look at how we are going to better take care of this earth that we have been given. So I hope both at the adult level and young adult level, you all are reading those books. As I said, I was in a middle school setting, and this book, it's called Apple, Skin to the Core, is just a really great book for young adults who, walk both sides of the culture that we live in. And if anybody doesn't know, apple is sort of a reference to you're red on the outside and white on the inside. Having not grown up in community or on the reservation, this story about this young woman really, really resonated with me in a great way. And it was on the National Book Award long list. So that's an important one. Another one that I really helps me in some of the work that I do at the legislature is called The Highway of Tears. And as it says on the front, it's a true story of racism, indifference, and the pursuit of justice for missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls. And I carried legislation here in Minnesota to create the Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women's Task Force, and then create the permanent office of missing and murdered relatives. So I'm always looking for good information and good kind of storytelling, because stories really move people, and that has been very helpful to me. Another good book by Stephen Graham Jones that I really appreciated is called The Only Good Indians. And as it's described on the back, a tale of revenge, cultural identity, and the cost of breaking from tradition. And it's considered horror literature. So for those of you who like that kind of thing, I would highly recommend this as well. One of the books that I read and purchased for my school for the middle school, and then a couple of teachers actually used it as a full class reading, is this book by Cherie Delamine. It's called The Marrow Thieves. And I think when we had our book club, Allison, the author joined us the day and talked about where the information came from or what inspired him to write this book. I think this was the one. Anyways, this is just a really compelling book about in the future when there's, kind of the end of the world and a dystopia. And there is a group of people that are trying to capture Indigenous people and steal their bone marrow, because somehow they've been able to survive sort of an apocalypse. It's very, very, it's a moving book, and it moves very, very quickly. I just wanted to talk a little bit about children's book, and I don't know how many of you really look at the plethora of books that are coming out these days. But children's books are just picture books are just such an easy way to share a story or give information about our culture, our heritage. We have some ferocious water protectors here in Minnesota. And the book, We Are Water Protectors by Carol Lindstrom, I thought is just a great one. I read it to my granddaughters often, and they ask for it in a lot of different ways. We're always trying to inspire young people to use the talents that they have and not hide it under a bush or under a basket. And another book that I have found that really resonates with a lot of folks is the book called Finding My Dance by Rita Thundercloud. It's just a beautiful, beautiful book about an Indigenous dancer. And it's like autobiographical. So it talks about how, as a very young girl, She went to powwows and she was ready to dance. But then as she grew up, she danced with, all at powwows and all over. But then she realized that there were more styles that really appealed to her and brought her a lot of joy. And so I think that those sort of books are really important to share with our youth. There's another book called We Are Still There, and that book itself is just an incredible book about Native American truths, especially from the youth perspective. And I would highly suggest that one. It's got a number of different American Indian kids that present like the history, our history, the policies and the struggles and the victories in Native life. And it's a reminder that we're all still here and doing the work that needs to be done. But those are some of the books to start us off. And as I said, I love to read. I wish I had more of my books here. I oftentimes give them away and find some or put them in little free libraries to share with other folks. It's interesting. I was over staying with my daughter in St. Paul, walking around with my granddaughter, and I came across a Native American little free library, which was just so thrilling to me, and turned out it was in the home of a woman that does a lot of work, and people would know her, with our American Indian education here in Minnesota.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Books Are Good Medicine. Subscribe to our channel on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. You can also visit our website, booksaregoodmedicine.com, to find episodes and resources or to send us a comment. This podcast is sponsored by the Shakopee, Mdewakanton Sioux community and produced by Goff Public. Our theme music is Stomp Dance by Blue Dog. The opinions expressed on the Books Are Good Medicine podcast by its co-hosts and guests are their own in their personal capacities and do not necessarily reflect the views of any organization with whom they are affiliated or of the podcast sponsor.